I'm very pleased to welcome Karl Lillrud back to the Pocket Mastermind podcast today. Welcome back, Karl.
Thank you.
It's really good to speak to you again.
Yeah, I
It's
had a really good time last time, so I'm
Yeah,
looking
no, it's
forward
really
to
good.
this one. Yeah,
Yeah, it hasn't been a huge amount of time, but it seems like quite a lot still seems to manage to happen in the world in between our conversations.
yeah,
It
definitely.
seems to get
We
turned up.
woke up to a new world.
We did.
Like it really feels like a huge difference just compared to a week ago.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see everything start to spring back into life and people mingling, and then obviously there's all sorts of other issues going on from the States that spread around the rest of the world, which has meant huge groups of people are now mingling for demonstration purposes, and it'll be interesting to see what the knock-on effect of that will be from a COVID perspective.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And
Last, yeah,
just to
carry on.
see that there's so many businesses that are back on track
Mm,
or online, sort of
yeah,
like they're starting up again and they're no longer in a lockdown.
yeah.
But also to see the energy and the willpower throughout the community. Like everybody just want everything to be back and working, not go back to normal, because I don't think anyone expected to
Hmm.
be as it was before, but to make sure that we don't suffer sort of anymore,
Yeah.
and that these business owners don't have to close down their businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. Yesterday morning, I went for a walk around London, around Camden area, and it's good to see more people around and more small businesses starting to open, independent coffee shops, even some market stalls starting to come back to life. So there's
Yeah.
definitely a feeling of things, like you say, not necessarily returning back to normal, but going back to operation, and whatever that's going to start to look like over the next 3, 6, 12 months, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think everybody can do their part. Like me, for example, I have all this experience, and I know that I can help many businesses to find clients in new ways, and especially through different online methods and channels. So I'm talking to my network and telling people that I will give away a free online growth consultation to help businesses that are not used to, especially the ones that are not used to working online, to actually find new clients and broaden their potential income, basically.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'd imagine there's a lot of businesses who, up until this point, have still remained largely, physical sales, and not embraced the online as much as some of the other, newer businesses that probably started in that area. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a different skill set, isn't it?
Yeah,
For
for sure. And it's not easy. I mean, just trying to Google about it, and you'll find so many different advice to follow. And like, yeah, you really need to do this and that. But in reality, you really need to start where your customers are and understand who your potential future customers are. Like do an analysis and understand the personas that are interested in your type of product and your offering.
Yeah, and that's something I think it's probably a step that doesn't always get as much attention as it probably could do. Um,
No,
it's
and
quite
I think it's connected to that there's so many businesses around
Yeah,
that try to sell their whatever they are offering, and obviously they will always say that their offer is the best one on the market.
yeah.
Like you should always do Facebook ads. No, you really should not always do Facebook ads. It
Oh, if your
depends
customers
on
aren't on there, no.
yeah, exactly. So there's tons of customers that don't use Facebook. So obviously, if your customer group don't use Facebook, then that's not the way to go.
No.
And there's so many other things that I basically cover in these free sessions
Mhm.
with business owners. So if there's any listeners that interested in that, then just reach out to me.
Yeah, definitely. I think again that just that first step alone is going to be is so invaluable, because it will stop anybody wasting money trying to talk to people that aren't listening.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
because it's so easy to get in contact with someone that that really just want to sell their thing
Yeah.
instead of just understanding you as a business and your especially understanding your customers and what they're looking for and where they look for what they need.
Yeah, definitely. And something we were speaking about a little bit earlier, and coming through all of this COVID stuff, and the adaptation and needing to change the way we do business, both as individuals but as organizations. It links very much into the mindset side of things, right? How do people get to that first point of processing all of this, and then deciding how to go forwards? And I know you've spoken a lot about mindset and tools to do the impossible, and on your TEDx talk.
Yeah.
So it'd be good to dig into a bit into the psychology and the mindset around, it's kind of resilience, isn't it? Really, to kind of come through this, adapt, change, and come out and thrive on the other side.
Yeah, definitely. But also, we're sort of, all of us are sort of in the same
Mm.
boat or in the same situation where it's so easy to get blinded by all these difficulties and all these challenges and financial problems that uh, the entire world are coping with right now.
Hmm.
And the very simplest thing to start with is to only focus on the positive things. The only focus on the things that you can do. Like, it's so easy for the mind to get controlled by all these negative emotions and situations. But if you start to, you don't need to block them out, but don't get blinded by them. And just always remind yourself, okay, so what is it that I can do? Always think of the question, what can I do? Not what can't I do? And you will actually figure out that there's tons of things that you can do. And by focusing on the things you can do, you will take small steps closer to that impossible thing that you are struggling with.
Hmm.
And that is the only way.
Yeah.
Never ever focus on the impossible part.
No, you're right, because your brain's very good at finding all the ways you can't do things, all the stuff you don't know, and
Yeah.
all the reasons why things won't work out. That's that's our challenge, isn't it? To overcome that part of the brain that plants the doubt in the back of your mind.
Yeah, exactly. Like all these things that we naturally don't enjoy. Like, for example, most people don't like doing their accounting.
Hmm.
So we will find ways to basically not have time to go through all the financial details that you need to go through as a business founder, or when you file for your taxes and tax returns and so on. And I find myself in situations where I started to like wipe the floor or whatever. Like, okay, so
Anything.
what's going on right now? Who took control of my body, and why am I not doing what I should do?
Hmm.
Yeah. So the mind is always taking these shortcuts to always try to control you in one way or another.
Mm.
And that is also something that I wrote quite much about in the book, Hacking Your Destiny.
Hmm.
That me is not really one thing. There's so many different systems interacting inside of me that also affect the other systems and can override decisions that these other systems have made.
Hmm.
And the more you understand that, the easier it will go in these difficult situations, and to overcome different struggles and challenges, to actually understand that your mind might actually be lying to you in some situations, or it might take shortcuts that you didn't control.
Hmm. And so, what kind of tools have you used yourself to get, that kind of procrastination, I guess, is that what you would probably call it, when you know you've got a job to do and you're doing everything else but doing that particular job to avoid it because I don't know, you don't enjoy it, you're not particularly good at it. What kind of tools have you implemented in your own life to help you get past that point and do the stuff you really need to be doing?
Yeah, the very first tool is the one that is like the back end of the entire book, and that is to ask questions. I ask questions towards myself all the time. Like where am I? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? And am I really supposed to do this right now? Like always trying to figure out what took me to where I am, but also always going through the prioritization. Is this actually the right thing to do right now? Will this decision make me get to where my goal is the fastest and with the least amount of risk, or with the most amount of uh, knowledgeable outcome?
Hmm. Do you have a planning process that you use? Do you plan on a weekly basis or monthly, that kind of stuff?
No, and I'm sure that many of the listeners don't agree with me on this one, but I I tend to not plan too much
Hmm.
because I want my mind not to be held back by a strict calendar,
Hmm.
and rather try to go with where I feel the energy is flowing, sort of.
Hmm.
And
And
also to always find inspiration and creativity, because depending on how I slept and depending on what dreams I had and what things I did not solve yesterday, or what things what new ideas I came up with during the weekend or
hmm.
whatever, that affects my personal leadership.
Hmm.
And there's so many different things that's going on all the time that I can use.
Hmm.
But also, if I have this strict calendar or a strict schedule to follow, then I don't allow myself to actually make use of all these new things that always goes around me.
Yeah, I think it's something a lot of people wrestle with back and forth. I do myself between planning and then, like you say, the inspiration that comes, which is never when you're trying to think of stuff. It's normally while you're doing something completely different, and
Yeah,
then you've got to try and where does that fit in, and so it's interesting to get your take on that, and be interesting to also learn a bit how those when you're asking yourself those questions. Is that do you do that in the morning? Is how do you then prioritize what you're going to do during, let's say, a particular day or a week, for example?
yeah. So I I have different hacks for myself, sort of.
Mhm.
I don't use to-do lists uh, in the way that most people use it. I don't have one endless to-do list with all the things that I have ever thought of, and then I just tick those boxes. Every now and then, I actually just remove my to-do list,
Mhm.
like delete it, literally, because all the things that I don't remember in that to-do list, the time that's passed since I wrote them have actually made me be someone else than who
Mhm.
I was at that point. And maybe I don't need to do those any longer.
Mhm.
But if I still have them in the to-do list, I will always believe that as I wrote them some days or weeks back, I actually do need to do it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
every now and then I just delete it.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. I've definitely done something similar in the past. I used to, I used to every now and then I'd write a list and think all the stuff in my head. I'd write it down, and then
Yeah,
a week later, you may have done three or four things from it, and the rest of it probably never needed to be done. You can quickly revisit and see if there's anything that needed to be done,
yeah,
and then do it. And if it didn't need to be, like you say, you can kind of move on from there.
yeah.
But I
There's a
guess
one easy method if you use a Windows computer,
hmm.
and that's to use Notepad and don't save. Because every now and then your computer will blue screen and reboot, or you run out of batteries, or the Windows update will just all of a sudden reboot your computer, and then you lost all the data.
And then you'll definitely that'll force you then to
Yeah,
take 10 minutes to figure out what's important and what you need to get done, I suppose.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So could be seen as a stupid method, but still, it's like, yeah, but still, it's like
I think you have
the
to find
things that
what
are,
works for you, don't you?
yeah,
That's the
definitely.
key with all of this stuff. And you know,
And
uh,
by doing so, you actually elaborate and try different methods.
mhm.
Like when I use the to-do app in my phone, I use it with the GPS positioning lists. So
Mm.
when I'm actually at the GPS position that I defined, then the phone have a push feature and
Oh, well.
says, okay, so you're actually outside this store and you're supposed to buy these things.
Hmm.
So I don't need to remember to always have these different to-dos, but it actually reminds me automatically. And I love that feature.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good tip, because that way you don't have to keep checking. Because one of the
yeah,
classics is, people write to-do lists and then never look at the to-do list anyway.
yeah,
So, or you completely forget to look at it and you go past the shop that you were supposed to pick something up from, get
yeah,
home and then realize. So, yeah, that's a good tip.
yeah. And in the end, again, you should always actually really celebrate those achievements that you had
Mhm.
every day. Because as you have a to-do list, you probably have this function in your to-do list app to automatically archive whatever you mark as done.
Mhm.
So you never see all the things you do. But if you, in the end of the day, go through all the things you've done, it will positively affect your mindset. Like, okay, I actually made all these achievements.
Yeah.
And that is super important, especially when we talk about the impossible. Like,
Yeah. I think
in
that's
most situations, the impossible is something big, but you
yes,
could
true.
work on that step by step. And as you see how you grow,
Mm.
it's gonna encourage you to work even harder.
Yeah, and it's definitely a step that isn't talked about enough. I think is the reviewing, and it's part of the gratitude process. I think that when you're able to take that time at the end of the day just to recognize where you have moved forwards, you gain a much greater sense of fulfillment, even if they're small tasks, than if you don't do that. I've found you're always looking forwards, and it feels like you don't go anywhere. You're treading water when actually you're moving forwards, and you're doing yourself a disservice. So,
Yeah,
and another great tip I think is to spend that time at the end of the day and review what you have been able to achieve.
yeah, for sure.
And it's also, something I've definitely picked up on this is, don't when you a lot of people, when they first do a to-do list, and I fell into this trap once before, was you start writing down all of the nonsense mundane tasks that you're going to do anyway. you know
Yeah,
Eat breakfast. You don't need
yeah,
to write that. You
exactly.
don't need to write that
Yeah,
stuff down. All
yeah,
you're going to end up with is 1,000 notifications every single day to say you've got a task to do. Focus on one or two meaningful things that you probably need to get done that was going to move you forwards, and then celebrate those as you tick them off, rather than drown yourself in a whole bunch of things that are back to back, thinking you're trying to book your diary every 15 minutes like someone like Bill Gates.
yeah, exactly.
And then where would you move from that point onwards? So if you're looking, thinking about, I've got to get these things done, how do you prioritize what you're going to do at any given time?
Yeah, so as I was mentioning before, I always try to focus on the things that will make me run the fastest, basically. Uh, and as you go about these different challenges that you're coping with, you will actually see that one thing in one particular time might not be the thing that's making you go the fastest. But as time change, it might change which task will make you run the fastest.
Hmm.
So that's why I revisit the prioritization probably at least 4 times per day
Hmm.
to see what actually is the most important thing right now. And it's also connected to my personal energy or my personal inspiration. Do I feel inspired enough to write a keynote presentation right now? No, I don't feel that I'm in the right zone, in the right mindset right now. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that it will take at least 3 times as much time to do a keynote right now. So what can I do instead? Okay, I can instead focus on the last presentation I made and just say thank you to the organizers and push that in social media and stuff like that. And that will help me run towards my goal at much faster than just spending 3 times as much time on the keynote that I was thinking of doing,
That's
as an
interesting.
example.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because you it's a good call out that you're not always in the right frame of mind to do maybe what's on the first on your list, like you say. I mean, something like writing the keynote speech, you need that creativity, don't you? The energy to be flowing to to deliver the best that you're going to be able to deliver. And
Yeah,
if you're in a bit of a, I don't know, you've had a late night or for whatever reason you're not quite in the flow,
yeah,
it's going to be painful. It's like people that write, like yourself, you've written 4 books. I'd imagine that there's some days you sit down and think it's not going to come out today. Do you know?
yeah, definitely.
And
Or when you've written an entire day and you realize that this is just crap. And you just delete it. That's really frustrating.
but sometimes you got to get that blockage out, haven't you? With
Yeah,
creative process, musicians and artists and all sorts of stuff. You're never going to write a great song every time. You're never going to paint a great painting every time. You're never going to write a great speech every time.
yeah.
And all of these kind
But
of things. But if you get it out, then at least it gets out the way, and you don't
yeah,
stew on that.
yeah. And to add to that, it's really important to start, even though you might feel that you're not ready to start, that you don't have the right spirit and feeling and everything. You still can write down some bullets, because just like we discussed before with that the ideas and the things that you're looking for, the solutions you're looking for, they will never appear when you look for them,
Hmm.
or in many situations they don't appear when you look for them.
No.
And that is something that I discuss about a bit in my second TED talk, about understanding the different ways your mind is operating, and that when you're processing things, your active mind will be trying to solve the problem. And
Hmm.
if you go away from that problem or this particular challenge, the mind actually hands over this situation to your subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind have a totally different toolbox.
Hmm.
So all of a sudden, when you think you're not thinking of that particular problem, you find the solution. And that is because your subconscious mind have taken over and been working like crazy to solve this riddle or whatever it is. So don't be afraid of stepping back. So what I suggested just a couple of seconds ago, to start by just adding a couple of bullets to a bullet list and then move away, that actually makes you start processing whatever it is that you're supposed to process, and then hand over to your subconscious mind.
I
Well,
think
if you don't start, you don't hand over to the
this,
subconscious mind.
yeah, this is true. I think you everyone probably has, probably without thinking about this, has probably experienced this at some point, and obviously many probably quite conscious of it. But you're right. If you kind of, even this, the simple example is always when you can't remember someone's name and you think, well, I can't,
Yeah,
what was their name? What was their name? And you go away and do something else, and suddenly it springs
yeah.
into into your mind, and it's exactly the same process. The subconscious is so powerful that it's working away while you're not thinking about it.
Yeah, definitely. So that's one of the really, really good tools that I encourage people to make use of. And as we were talking about doing the impossible, look at those impossible tasks, because as you look at it, you try to think of it from different angles. And now you actually opened up that Pandora's box and realize that maybe you can break this impossible thing up in smaller chunks,
Mhm.
like separating the different pieces of things that are needed to be done into smaller tasks. And as you do that, you'll find things that you can do, but also all the other things, as you process them, will be being hand over to the subconscious mind, and step by step you'll get closer to the goal.
Hmm. Do you have do you have anything that you do? Do you go to when you step away? Do you try and do something, something else that might be creative, or just like a, I don't know, household chore or something that you found that works quite well for you?
Yeah, I have a lot of different things that I do. So when I really want to focus and stay in a creative mode, I use a special playlist that I created with music that really inspires me. Most people find that music quite strange. It's not music that you would normally really listen to, but it opens up my mind in a different way.
Interesting. What kind of music is it?
It's very much instrumental music,
Hmm.
uh, or in some situations it might be some words, and those words are often not in a language that I know.
Hmm. I
So
see.
I don't start to connect the dots in my mind connected to
Yeah,
that word and that situation that they're talking about in the song or whatever.
that's a
And
good.
then
Yeah.
also in some situations, I'm really stressed, and
Hmm.
I found so many different ways to handle stress. Because again, I question my stress levels. I question how I came to this situation, and then I try to figure out different solutions to solve it. And one of the very best solutions that I use a lot is lying on a mat of nails. Uh,
Really?
yeah, it's amazing. And I do it not every day, but almost every day.
Wow.
Uh, and uh,
How
and
did you
it's
how did you come by that?
um, probably trial and error. I've been trying so many different things, and in one
That's properly out of the
particular,
box.
yeah, and in one situations, I probably realized that okay, so I was going to massage and get acupressure. I
Hmm.
was reading up on the theory and what's actually happening in your body when you do acupressure, and there's the the body starts flowing blood to that particular place to break up whatever it is that have a negative effect on your body and so on. And I was feeling inside my body how that really helped me. And then I also been, as I've been doing this ice swimming
Hmm.
that you can see more in the first TED Talk video as well. I realized that our body is always so tensed. The muscles are really always struggling to handle whatever stress levels we have. Uh, and the acupressure helped me with the tension in my body. So I stepped over to identifying how I could do this in a larger scale and on my own. And the matter of nails is exactly that.
Where do you even buy a mat of nails from?
Yeah, you just Google for it online and you find tons of different ones.
Really?
Yeah, I have one that is like it's like hard plastic, real long nails. I think they're like 2.5 centimeters long or something like that, and they're quite wide apart, so it really digs into the skin. And then there's these uh, more common ones that are more like really small
Hmm.
nubs or sharp needles that just are a few millimeters. So I definitely recommend the one that have wider apart separation because you will get, according to me, a greater effect from that.
Did you migrate to the one that's further apart?
No, I started. I tend to always go crazy from the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I gathered that from watching you talk about the ice.
Yeah, it's more fun this way.
Yeah. So what was it that led you to do the ice swimming in the first place? What made you say, like you say, like I watched you talk, and it's you live in Sweden. Most people through 6 months of the year are wearing big ski jackets and warm clothing, and you're deciding to swim
Yeah,
365 days of the year.
yeah. It's it's all started with that we wanted to get some nice exercise, and then at one point it was like, okay, so how long can we do this? And I said, let's do it to the 1st of November, and everybody was like, yeah, right. That's pure stupidity. And after a while, when we got closer to November, and then we actually passed the 1st of November, and we realized, I think it was like the 18th of November or something like that. We realized that, okay, so the 1st of November already passed, and we didn't even think about it because we've been focusing on making it happen more than focusing on the problem. Um, and so me and my friend, we decided to just keep on going and see how far we could go. And it became more and more intense, of course, and we had to break up the different so-called impossible parts into smaller pieces to make it possible. And step by step, we just made it work. And eventually we realized we don't need to stop. We can go full circle all year round and just keep on going. So we did that, and we learned so much. I mean, that could be a full podcast show, not just an episode. And the things that we learned about our body and the different systems inside our body, and like how we react to stress levels and how we react to critical situations, and so on. It's
Did you
really,
find
really interesting.
did you find yourself as you went on more interested in the science of how your body was reacting and starting to research?
Yeah, for sure. And also from like a level of being allowed to do it from my wife and so on, to actually show that, okay, it's really not that dangerous as most people say. And then obviously the reply was, yeah, it is.
So your research was founded out of a bit of necessity to get the permission ultimately,
Yeah, and
as much as it
obviously
was your own curiosity.
I don't want to go and kill myself. I want to make
Exactly.
sure that there's actually a chance to handle this situation. I wouldn't jump in front of a bullet because I think it's an interesting experiment. I would analyze and see if that is something that I can handle, and I would probably realize that, yeah, I can jump in front of a bullet, but I better have a body armor that actually can handle that particular bullet. And if I do that, will that bullet possibly hit my arm? And if so, what effect would that have on my arm? And is that a risk that I'm willing to take? Again, breaking up the different pieces of information and try to see what I can do to handle it.
And what did you take from that experience and transfer into your everyday life that you perhaps weren't doing beforehand?
At the most important things that I took with me was to listen to my body and to understand the language that my body was expressing itself in, and not be in a situation where my body or my mind is lying to me. Because if I were to jump into ice cold water, my mind would say to me that this is a dangerous situation. I will now take you out of this situation. And mine would tell my body to swim back to the shore or wherever, like a ladder, and jump up because it was dangerous. It was a shocking situation, and it's better to stay away from it. So there's so many different layers again inside the body that I learned about, and could see for myself how they were operating and how they were interfering with each other. And again, of course, just rehearsing the model of breaking up impossible tasks into smaller and smaller pieces to make it work.
And do you think it helped strengthen your own mind to identify, there is a reaction to something that says, oh no, we can't, it's not going to work out, it's not going to happen. And do you think you got stronger and better at actually getting past that point in your own mind in normal everyday scenarios?
Yeah, for sure. The most important thing is that I proved to myself that I could do it. And that is like the greatest thing that you can do for yourself. To not listen to what the crowd say,
Hmm.
but listen to yourself. And if you believe you can do it, then prove to yourself that you can do it. Don't prove it to everyone else, because their acceptance or their appreciation or whatever is not at all as valuable as your own. To actually believe in yourself that you can do all these amazing things, and then show to yourself that you can do it. That's so powerful.
Yeah.
And it will make you a stronger person. It will make you so much more secure in other situations where your mind will break that situation up and relate it to that previous situation.
It's so true. I think I love the Arnold Schwarzenegger quote. He said, I think he said, when people say it's impossible, it can't be done, no one's ever done it before. He said that's great because it means I'm going to be the first person to ever do it.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
it's a great mindset to have.
yeah.
And have you got any kind of, I don't know, little mental exercises? For a lot of people, I think it sounds great. Okay, I just get on and do. But have you found anything that you can use on a daily basis just to remind yourself to try that little thing and focus on something you can do?
Yeah, so there's one thing that I encourage everyone, and that is when you go to bed every night, say out loud what new things you have learned and what achievements you have had. And in the beginning, you might find it a little bit silly, and your partner might find it a little bit silly, but you will actually see how powerful it is, because you go to bed with a positive mindset, with all the things you have done, and you will fall asleep smiling, and that designs your sleep pattern
Hmm.
and your dream pattern as well. It defines how your resting period will be, and then as you wake up, you'll already be fine-tuned into adding to that list,
Hmm.
because you know that when I go to bed, I have to have a number of things that I have done for me, not for anyone else. Because in life, it's so easy to fall into that pattern that we just repeat whatever it is. Okay, so it's Monday. Then I always go to that restaurant.
Hmm.
I have a coffee break at this particular time. I take the bus number 64, and then I leave the bus, and it's this TV show. And yeah, you get the point.
Hmm.
Try to break that pattern. Don't take the same bus. Walk home. Take another path. Meet someone else. Do something different. Like break the pattern.
It helps. I think great advice because I think time flies so quickly because we fall into autopilot routines. Right?
Yeah.
You do like you just said. You do the same thing. You watch the same TV show. Whatever it is, you do the same thing every day, every week, and before you know it, it's Wednesday again. It's Wednesday
Yeah,
again.
exactly.
When you know,
Yeah.
and before you know it, 3 months have gone by, and you've watched 12 episodes of a show, and you think, bloody hell, where did my life go?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But it's it's not easy though, is it, to break those habits, particularly when they've been ingrained for quite some time.
Yeah, for sure. But by practicing, it's
Hmm.
easy to break habits. It's just the situation where we say it's not easy. It's because we don't make it easy. We
Yes.
just accept that it's not easy. But if you start, you will see that it's easy to take the first step, and then you just move on, take the second step, and on you go.
Hmm.
But you need to focus on breaking patterns, because it's in many situations it's not a good thing.
Hmm. Definitely, it's about replacing, isn't it? Because if you try and stop doing something and leave a void, I think that becomes more challenging. Always doing something at a certain time, there's normally some kind of stimulus and response, and your response is that habit. If you can change the response to whatever that stimulus might be, maybe it's boredom at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when you're at work or whatever it is, and
Yeah.
rather than going and eating something, go for a walk around the office, or do something else that might be more positive.
Yeah.
You've got to fill that void is something I found, because
Yeah.
otherwise the brain will go, like you say, how powerful the subconscious is. It will take over, and it's going to, and before you know it, you'll be doing the old habit again.
Yeah. Definitely.
Any any other advice for people that maybe, they want to do, they want to do something, I think a lot of people would like to do something different, and I'd imagine from, off the back of everything that's gone on with the COVID situation, that there's probably a lot of people out there thinking about wanting to do something different. They change their life, sick of the commute, all of these things that were habits that got interrupted automatically, but are scared or worried about taking that leap.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for many people to do something different means that they need to break the pattern, which is, and that is challenging and it's time consuming and it will consume a lot of energy in the first stage because you don't see the positive effect that it will have directly.
Hmm.
And and the mind is like super lazy. Remember that the mind will always try to choose the shortcuts. Um, and what I suggest is to again start with the baby steps.
Hmm.
Don't don't make these really big changes because that if that have a negative effect, your mind will use that against you. Like, yeah, you know what happened that last time when you tried to change? I told you so.
Hmm.
And it's telling you like, yeah, don't try to change because it's gonna hurt so much like it did that last time. Instead, try to make tiny changes
Hmm.
and you'll see that you'll start to feel better and better about it. And then you boost yourself to dare to take larger larger decisions about your life.
Yeah, I think we can all be quite guilty of trying to do too much too soon, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'm gonna lose weight and start running every single day, having never run for for the
Yeah,
last 10
exactly.
years.
Yeah,
It's not going to
exactly.
happen. I mean, how many days are you going to feel like that's going to last for? It's probably
Yeah.
3 or 4, and it will start. You
Yeah.
start not getting up. So,
Yeah, or like when I started to write the last book, it's like, okay, so I want to write this book. How much time should I put into it? Yeah, I should write like 1 page every day and at least one chapter per week. That means that I need to write some days. I need to write a couple more pages probably.
hmm.
Yeah, right. That won't happen because life happens. And also inspiration comes and goes.
Hmm.
So when I got stuck in a particular place in the book, instead of focusing on that, I started to focus on something totally different. Like, for example, what should the back of the book say? Or
Hmm.
what image should I have as an opening image in the book? Or how, what time, if I have literally no inspiration, what books in the bookstore attracts my eye?
Hmm.
Like just take a walk and do something else.
Yeah.
And as I walk into the bookstore, I did a simple test with myself. Like, okay, so I have half a second. Which books did I actually pick out?
Hmm.
All these things. Like, okay, so purple is a nice color. Is it really? Is it easy to read, or is it just that it sticks out because all the other books in that corner was white or something like that?
Hmm.
Always try to do what's easy. And eventually when you have the personal empowerment and the believe in yourself, you're ready to do all those difficult tasks as well.
I think we're all very good at imagining things to be far more difficult and far more complicated than they probably are most of the time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
We
And
can
when you talk to people,
build
you
everything into our up in our own heads, can't we? So, oh,
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
never be able to do it, and you just got to try.
yeah, exactly. And that's, I mean, as a younger version of myself, I tried all the time. I tried when I tried to learn how to walk.
Hmm.
I mean, we have been trying throughout our lives, and eventually we learn that trying is not always rewarding. Trying could be really challenging and taking a lot of energy from us. And that energy I could save for later if there's a lion running in that might eat me. But that's not the situation any longer. But our mind is fine tuned to always conserve energy and try to like save it for later because you don't know what's going to happen. But
Hmm.
today, sort of, we always tend to have an idea what will happen, and maybe there's a panic or there's really crazy situations a couple of times per year, not per day.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I always like to try and think about, can you, if you think yourself back to a year ago today, can you remember anything about that day whatsoever? Probably not.
yeah,
And
exactly.
there was probably on something that day that you
Yeah,
thought was important, and
yeah, exactly.
and it's clearly not. Most things are nowhere near as important as we build them up to be in our own heads.
Yeah, exactly.
And if we can remind ourselves of that, and focus on the stuff that might be a bit more important, and have fun I think
Yeah,
probably the biggest thing of all. Don't take it all too seriously is the thing
yeah,
I've learned
definitely.
in my life, because you're going to die either way. You can be serious about it, or you can have a laugh about it, and
Yeah,
try and make the most of every situation.
yeah, for sure. I fully agree with you. And also, I did in one of the chapters in the book, I did a calculation of how much time we have to play with.
Hmm.
Like if you remove all the time you're in office and you remove all the time that you do chores that you have to do, and you remove all the commuting time and everything, and then you try to cut out the piece that is your very own time that no one else dare to take or can take from you, it's not many minutes per day.
No.
And if you spend those minutes just scrolling through Facebook, then yeah.
It's true, and again, another reason why we find our days slip by so quickly, I
Yeah,
think, is if you're not conscious of that time. And also, I think I like that image that you just painted, really, of you're funneling your time down. And one of the challenges can be to how do you increase that portion of the day that does belong to you.
yeah,
Can always
exactly.
be a positive game for people to play.
Yeah.
Any other tips and advice you want to give to anybody who's wants to achieve more than they are now, and for whatever reason they
Yeah,
hold themselves back?
there's one big, but sorry about this, but my book. No, but seriously, the book is a result of me trying to solve all these life riddles and handling all these really difficult
Yeah.
situations. So every chapter is one tool to handle a particular situation or a particular type of situation. Um, but also to understand more about yourselves and where you're heading. To break one out of the book, I would say that you also need to understand more about what you want to spend your time on.
Hmm.
Like there will be people in your life that don't give you energy,
Yep.
that takes energy from you. Consider those people if they are actually allowed to take that energy away from you, if they don't bring new energy to the table, sort of.
Hmm.
Is it worth it? Again, if you think of those, the calculation of the day and how many minutes you have to play with as your own time. If you just had a conversation with this energy thief, so
Yeah.
then maybe you don't have the energy to make the most out of that minute or those few minutes that is your very own.
Yeah, it's an important point, I think. um you've got to surround yourself with as many positive people as you possibly can, people that are trying to strive and support each other in trying to achieve more and move forwards and live a happy life. Unfortunately, you know, a lot of people do end up surrounded by people that hold them back, whether and they're not necessarily ill-meaning people. It's just the, oh, it will never work kind of attitude. Why would you want to do something so silly? Blah blah blah. All of
Yeah,
these little things that ultimately kill dreams. And
yeah,
you want to try and find the people that are going to help you build the dreams rather than knock them down. Because, you know, unfortunately, if you do achieve something, a lot of other people want to achieve stuff too, and for whatever reason of not, you know, broken through that pain barrier themselves, and they don't want to see you.
yeah,
They don't want to see the reflection back of
yeah.
the things that they haven't been able to achieve. So it's hugely important to have the right people around you.
Yeah, but one interesting experiment would be to make use of this situation that all of us have been in, and that we sort of are in one way or another still, and talk to your friends
Hmm.
and say like, don't you guys feel that we should get more out of life? And I think that most people would say yes.
Hmm.
And then, okay, so if we encourage each other as a group of friends and support each other,
Hmm.
then probably we can get more out of life. So instead of us looking at the different risks or problems in whatever bucket list we might have, let's let's play with this as an experiment together and say, okay, everybody bring their bucket list to the next lunch or dinner, and let's go through it and see how we can support each other to reach those dreams. I think you will see amazing results
Hmm. I love
because
that.
they're still your friends, and we tend to want to stay with our friends. And as time go by, all our lives change. But if you tell your friends about the possibilities that you want to enable through your life, then I think that most of your friends will support you if you are open and honest with what you need. Many of your friends will probably, if they don't understand the concept of this and you haven't told them, they will probably try to protect you.
Yeah.
And they think that the protection is to keep you away from risks and danger. But if you're open with it from the beginning and like, yeah, I want to really make this happen,
Hmm.
and I'm prepared for the risk. What do you think? What do you think I should do to make it happen? Not what risks do you see. Instead, try to turn it around and like, yeah, I want your support to make this happen.
Yeah. I think that's a great piece of advice, and probably a good place to wrap it up for this one.
Yeah.
Um, it's a great positive end, and hopefully more people do that. Let's remind everybody where people can find you, and also about the book.
Yeah. So if you go to karllillrud.com, KarlLillrud.com, that's where you can reach out to me, and you also find the details about all the books that I've written. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And also, if you're in a situation where you want to really challenge where your business is right now and try to find clients in new ways, and understand the possibilities that lies in front of you using online methods and so on, then feel free to reach out to me.
Definitely. And the book?
Yeah, and the book is named Hacking Your Destiny. It will be available in probably most of the online platforms, but the easiest way right now to find it is to go to my website, and there's a link to the stores where you can find it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Well, it's been really good to talk to you.